do Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 13. And what we're going to unpack today is the whole concept of finding balance in our lives. This is something that I've had tension with a lot of people, because I say quite often, you can have everything you want, and people get really angry. In fact, I'm going to post a picture about it in the Facebook group here in a little bit to show you what a lot of people say when I say you can have everything in your life that you want. But you genuinely can have everything that you want in your life, but you have to be deliberate. And I feel like if you look at the wisdom found in Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 13, not only does it make it possible, but it makes it very tangible. I also debated with myself about stopping at 8, because 3, 1 through 8 is very concise about what we're talking about today. But I also felt that as the word kept going, it just for me, the thought truncated at 13. So I'm gonna say this knowing that we could have talked about Ecclesiastes literally all day today, because it is just a treasure trove of wisdom and application. But we're going to truncate at 13 because we need some balance in our life. So if you got the scripture in front of you, feel free to read along. If not, I'm going to read as well. So Ecclesiastes 1, 3, Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 13. A time for everything. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven. There's a time to be born and a time to die. There's a time to plant and a time to uproot. There is a time to kill and there's a time to heal. There's a time to tear down and there's a time to rebuild. There's a time to weep and there's a time to laugh. There's a time to mourn and a time to dance. There is a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. There's a time to embrace and a time to refrain. There is a time to search and there's a time to give up. There is a time to keep and there is a time to throw away. There is a time to tear and there's a time to mend. There is a time to be silent and there's a time to speak. There is a time to love and there's a time to hate. There is a time for war and there's a time for peace. What does the worker gain from his toil? I have seen the burden God has laid on men. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the hearts of men, yet they cannot fathom what God has done from the beginning to the end. I know that there is nothing better for men than to be happy and to do good while they live, that everyone may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. I mean, first off, it's hard not to sing the song from the 70s where it's like, a time to live, a time to... Anyways, I just tried not... Like, as I was reading that, I'm like, don't go into melodic. Don't get melodic. You can't sing well anyways. Don't do it. So that's where my mind went. But this is something I've said for a while, and I feel like this is a really great place to start resting biblical principles on it. And even if we unpack what we unpacked a few weeks ago about how long weight loss actually takes in the scope of our lives, one of the things that I feel that American culture struggles with is exasperating timelines. And this is where I feel like as people, we can separate the action from the emotion and know that sometimes there's a time to be sad and there's a time to deeply unpack our emotional roots of why we struggle. But if you've ever owned a computer, and we're talking so most of you do, you know that you can open one browser and then open another browser. And I feel like sometimes we get stuck in this one browser mentality of, I've got to focus everything on weight loss. Everything has to be weight loss. Everything has to be weight loss. And then we get told, well, you can't really focus on weight loss until you solve the root of why you're overweight. And then you start focusing on all that, all the while your negative behaviors and habits keep accruing more weight, and it becomes this cycle. But I look at my life and I look at this verse like a web browser with multiple tabs that you can toggle between. Maybe you're shopping and you're like, hey, I wonder if Wayfair has a coupon code. Well, you don't want to lose your place and your product, so you open up a new tab and you go search for a coupon code. And this kind of leads me into a gentleman named Zig Ziglar, who you may have heard of. And so Zig Ziglar has this wheel of life where he makes the case that to have a fulfilled life, there needs to be balance in this wheel. And so the things he includes are health, money, family, work, personal and social, spiritual, mind, and intellect. Now, definitely not as in depth as Ecclesiastes 3 1 through 8, but you can start seeing the parallels of the psychological mentality of balance, but also the biblical mentality of balance. And I feel like the biggest barrier, the genuinely biggest barrier between us and actually having balance is so many of us have an all or nothing mentality. Some might even say it's a binge and purge mentality, but I feel like that might be too clinical. So I'll just say an all or nothing mentality. And I feel like the challenge, for me, there's three big challenges with why that all or nothing mentality is the biggest reason we struggle so much to find balance in our lives. And the first is the higher the highs, the lower the lows. And what I mean by that is this. So let's take the all or nothing mentality and just focus it on, let's just say eating, right? And this is where concepts like Whole30 or keto come into play. They're very, very, very specific about what you can and cannot eat. And for a season, that is good. That is okay. However, that season will come to an end because Whole30 and keto really aren't meant to be in and of themselves fully sustainable lifestyles, because there does need to be some carbohydrates. There does need to be some things that we like. You live, right? Like there will come a time in your life where you will go to pilot, the travel stop, and you might have to eat a hot dog. And yes, it'll taste terrible, but that's life. That's all you got. I went to Disney recently. It was a lot of Disney food. My intestines hated it, but I'm not going to complain. I was at Disney. I had a hot dog. It was terrible. Still had it though, because that's life, right? Like that is life. And I feel like when you build yourself up and you sort of funnel yourself into a corner of it has to be perfect, it has to be perfect, it has to be perfect, eventually that breaks. And we go from 100% regulation to no regulation. So whether you want to call it a binge, making up for last time, finally eating a carb, like whatever you want to call it, the higher the high that you have will lead to the lower the low when the bottom of that falls out. And the challenge is, I've seen this in my own life, I've seen it in my clients' lives, you've probably seen it in your life. Quite often, we'll be really diligent for a week, and then that bevy breaks. And then it's 2 weeks to get back to where we were. So we took one step forward, but then we took 2 steps back. Now multiply that over a year, multiply that over 2 years, multiply that over 10 years. All of a sudden, you can see how those 30, 40, 50 pounds accrue. But not just with mind, or just not just with body though, but also with mindset. You know, if you spend a week focusing on the good, and then some random comment makes you sad, and you dwell in that sadness for 2 weeks, that's 2 weeks of your life lost by dwelling in the sadness of an unqualified opinion of others. And so I think the biggest barrier for us finding balance genuinely is the all or nothing mentality, because the higher the high, the lower the low. But also, when you focus laserly on one thing, you tend to neglect the other things. And this isn't This isn't me throwing stones at Dave Ramsey. Like, if you want to eat beans and rice to get out of debt, that's a great idea. But inherently, in that model, there's some nutrition that might wane. So you might, to get out of debt, put yourself in debt in your health. And so that's not always good either, because sometimes we get so focused on something that we neglect other things. Sometimes we get so focused on work that we'll neglect our family. Or sometimes we'll be so focused on our family that we'll neglect we need to get to work. Sometimes we'll be so focused on our physical health, we won't focus on our mental or emotional health. And so the biggest challenge that a lot of us face in terms of going to these extremes is not just the higher the highs, the lower the lows, but also the neglect aspect of when you're hyper focusing on one thing, what other things aren't getting done. But then the third thing is that quite often when you take the all or nothing approach, it's just simply not sustainable. I mean, it really isn't. And this is one of the philosophies that I've talked about. I don't know if we've talked about it here, but when it comes to weight loss, there's a few different modalities that I talk about. The first one is 63 days. I feel like committing 63 days solid. I made a journal about it. And if you can just commit those 63 days and then recalibrate, you'll have lost 10 to 35 pounds, sometimes even more. But then you also get a breather at the end of that. So you have your season of focus and then a season of rest. Also, there's and this is popular with some of the ladies, there's a 21/7 approach that I'll take, and it's focused typically around, sorry for being honest, but like menstrual cycles, right? So sometimes when the cycle comes, you don't want to think about going to the gym because of situations. And so what we'll do is we'll do 21 days focused and then 7 days maintenance, and then 21 days focused and 7 days maintenance. And not only is this a great perspective to start building in the maintenance mentality while you're losing, but it also gives you the fact of, I just need to make it 21 days. I just need to make it to the next cycle and we're good. And so when it's this all or nothing mentality, quite often you get yourself into a place where things are unsustainable. You're neglecting other aspects of your life and you're setting yourself up for bigger falls. And I would wager that's the biggest reason why most of us don't have balance in our lives, is we're approaching things in an unsustainable, neglectful to everything else type of way. So now that we know the problem, what do we do about it? Glad you asked. So there are three things that I really think helps us break the cycle of this all or nothing mentality. And we're going to walk through the three things that I feel we can do to really grab control of our lives and start not just throwing, but also sowing seeds into all of the aspects of our health. The first one, you guys, this might be redundant, but I'm going to say it until y'all do it. The first step is to tell your schedule what to do, i.e., manage your time. One of the biggest things that make our heads spin collectively is we are pulled in so many ways. Some of us are parents, some of us are business owners, some of us are spouses, some of us are children. So some of us are all of the above. Some of us volunteer with ministry. Some of us run ministries. Never before, my opinion, but there's also stats to back this up, but never before in culture has there been a time where we've been pulled for our attention in so many ways. And often there's this guilt put upon us that we have to do everything. But there's a successful gentleman whose name is Warren Buffett, who has a masterful quote that says, the more successful you are is directly related to how good at saying no you've become. And the concept is, for lack of a better term, learning how to be an adult. Because there is a season for everything. And sometimes you may need to do something more than something else. But this is where the biggest difference between deliberate and neglect is. It is being intentional. So if you tell, let's just say your finances, right? Like let's say you want to get in fiscal shape. If you're going to curb your spending for 2 months and not do anything for 2 months, then all of a sudden, not only are you going to make a huge dent in that debt that you're trying to get out of, but also you're telling the rest of your life that you might be taking away from for a little bit that it's okay. It's just a season. But where we start to get in trouble is when we're not deliberate about it. And we try to do is everything all at once. And again, the higher the high, because you're setting your expectations that you can be Superman or Superwoman, the lower the low, because we're not. We're human. That's why we're here. We need a savior. Thank you, Jesus. And so the number one way to start breaking the cycle to have balance is to take control of your schedule. Don't feel like you're a victim to all the people pulling on you. Take a deep breath. Say, I'm the adult here. I'm going to manage my time in a way that allows me to accomplish what I need to accomplish, then what I want to accomplish, and then what I'll consider accomplishing. I've got 6 books that aren't written yet. Why? Because they don't need to be written yet. They'll be written someday, but now is not the time. There will be a time. However, in a month, I'm completely redoing the Prodigal Wasteland course. The time for that is almost upon us. So I'll be doing less hockey then. Right now, this is a time, ironic phrasing, this is a season for hockey. Wordplay. That season will end, metaphorically and actually. But it's all deliberate and it's all planned. And so I know that the things I'm not doing right now will be done in less than 28 days. And that's okay, because it's deliberate. I also know, and this is where planning comes in, as many of you know, I love running. I don't like the heat. You know when's a good time to run? Fall. Do you know when I'm going to start running? Fall. Do you know when the best time to play ice hockey is? Summer. Why? Because you're in a giant ice box. It's all deliberate. Y'all think I'm crazy. There's a method. And the method is you tell your time what to do. That way you never feel like you have to do everything. That way you never feel like you're always pulled, like you're underproductive, like you're guilty for not doing those things. No. Take stock of your life. Tell your time what to do. Don't be victimized by the calendar. You're the adult. You run the show. You tell your time what you're going to do. And when you do that, you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish. The second thing that helps break the cycle is to set realistic small goals. I always say, be better today than you were yesterday, and try to make tomorrow better than today. One of the biggest challenges that I see with a lot of my clients, especially when it comes to water consumption, people will go from like 1 bottle of water a day to making their goals, I'm going to have 8 bottles of water a day. And I'm excited for them. I feel bad for their bladder, but I'm excited for them. And I think that while it's very noble, I also feel like it might not be the most attainable scenario. Because to go from 1 bottle a day to 6 bottles of water a day, that's a pretty big jump. Likewise, if we were going along the whole money aspect, if you're going from no spending, or my fault, if you're going from frivolously spending to no spending, you're setting yourself up for failure. But if you look at your spending by going, like, what do I actually need? Jeremy Rochford, do you need more NASCARs? No, you don't. Well, then cut that out. Jeremy Rochford, do you really need Starbucks? Yeah, okay, then we keep that. Point is that no one laughed. Y'all were supposed to laugh. Fine, that's okay. Point is that when you look at your life in terms of wants versus needs, there's a lot of things that we do frivolously. There's a time to have conversations with our friends. Sometimes we'll let our friends just hijack our conversations. Like, oh, I'll talk to them for a minute. And then all of a sudden, 2.5 hours go by during prime time of our days. And we're like, what happened? Like, there's a very specific time that I call my mom. It is after 7. Because if I call my mom during the day, she's just going to take up hours of productivity time. But if I call her after 7, I'm done being productive. I'm on family time. She can waste that time all we want talking about rice cookers and how she can't wait to get back to bingos, and bingos with masks are going to be crazy, cray cray. In fact, I just looked up a new Honda recall for her. Did it after 7. Everyone won. 2018 and beyond. Her car and my car are safe because we're balling on a budget. But if you make small goals and they're realistic, such as I'm drinking 1 bottle of water this week. My goal for next week is to double that. I'm gonna have 2 bottles of water. You can do that. Your bladder can handle that. Likewise, I'm gonna do 3 next week. The goal is to stop the cycle of the all or nothing mentality, because we're looking for balance. Because if you live in a balanced lifestyle, you will be more successful than not, which is why most weight loss initiatives fail. Well, there's many reasons, but why do most weight loss initiatives fail? It's because we never actually fix the foundation of what's going on, and we never do it incrementally. My analogy to weight loss is we do a really great job of changing out the drywall and putting up new paintings every single year. But it's the framework that's rotting. It's the framework that needs help. And so it's only a matter of time until those screws start to come loose and the drywall falls again. Well, small realistic goals will say, let's take this 6-foot section, see where the weight's bearing, fix the framework, and then put on the nice drywall. And guess what? That's done. We can move on. So the first way to break this cycle, tell your time what to do, be in charge. The second is to set realistic goals, small realistic goals, and small is scalable. Like for me, running an extra mile a day is a small goal for me because I can run 26. But for someone who's just trying to start their 5K, running a half mile is a massive goal. It's scalable. But if you know you can do it and you know it's achievable, you start there. The third thing is to deliberately do something that causes progress every single day. Every day, whether you feel like it or not. This is the I don't care if you have the feels point. We don't feel like doing certain things every day. Certain times we just don't have the emotional aptitude. It doesn't matter. If you want balance, you need to do the things that you are supposed to do, that you need to do before you want to do. This whole mindset is something I call the first fruits mentality. The first fruit is God. Make sure you've taken care of your responsibility in your relationship with God. Second is, what has God called you to do? If that's weight loss, it's weight loss. If it's self-care and self-love, dig into that. If it's to be involved in a ministry, do that. So your first fruit's God. Your second fruit is, what has God called you to do? And then the third fruit is really everything else. Like, I know that God has not called me to hockey. I have not put hockey above God and or my responsibilities. But when I have extra time, boom, hockey. Because I've done my first fruits. I've done my second fruits. I feel like where a lot of us get in really deep water or trouble is we take that third aspect and we really move it to first. I want to do this. I'm going to do this. How's your walk with God going? I've not talked to him in a week. Huh. How's the rest of your life going? It's frustrating. Interesting. Do you see a direct correlation? No. Oh, yeah. If you genuinely can look at your life as long as it is, because for a lot of us it is long, there's time enough to do everything. So by being deliberate with our schedule, having small incremental goals to achieve on a daily basis, and then actually making steps to achieve those, that slow but steady mentality has won over so many rabbits. I can't even tell you how many times. Because people are always like, well, just think about this. And I don't mean this in a bragging kind of way. How many people come to Jeremy for weight loss advice? A lot. Why? Because he's actually kept it off for 15 years. How? By doing the things I'm asking you to do. To some degree, they're not sexy at all. You know what's sexy though? Winning. And a happy you is the best thing that can happen. And it happens by doing the fundamental things that we often neglect to do because we have Dory from Finding Nemo syndrome of like, oh, that's shiny. That's shiny. Ooh, that's shiny. I want that. I want that. I should do that. I'm not good enough. I will be good enough. I will. No, no. Stop the madness. God first, what he's called you to second, everything else third. With that mentality, you then plan your schedule. You tell your schedule what to do. You've had your time with God first, great. You've got 23 and a half hours left to do with whatever you want. That's a crap ton of time. Oh, you slept for 8 hours? Great. You've still got 16 left. Oh, you have to work for 8 hours? Great. You still have 7.5 hours left. What are you doing with that time? I don't have time for fitness. You don't have time for 30 minutes and 7.5 hours? I'm not a mathologist, but you do. When you actually take control of your time and you don't give it away mindlessly to the internet or to TV or to useless social situations. Mind you, I said useless social situations. There are very, very useful social situations, but we all have that one or two friends in our lives who will just call us and talk for an hour, literally complaining about things that have no bearing on anyone's life. That is not fruitful. But when you seek first the kingdom of God with your time, you will see just how much time you actually have to do anything you want to do. And that gives you the control you're looking for, which is step one of breaking this cycle. Tell your time what you're going to do with it. Don't let your schedule run you. Second, once you have that, insert small realistic goals. I will die on this hill. 30 minutes of deliberate physical activity a day, every single day for the rest of your life will beat 3 hours at the gym on Saturday and then doing nothing the rest of the week. Guarantee you. Third, do something every day that causes progress, even if you don't feel like it. You will not wake up every day and feel like taking on the world. The world's still going to take on you. How are you going to respond? Nike's made billions. You just do it. And you're going to be like, oh, that's so cliche. Well, you know what? It works. It's cliche because it works. It's like when you go to the doctor, right? Doctor, I need to lose weight. What can I do? Well, probably eat less and move more. Ah, you've been saying that for years. I know, it's because you're not listening. Literally, the easiest solution typically is the most simplest. We don't have to overcomplicate all this crap. We just have to do the things that we know we're supposed to do because we've told our time what we're going to do with it, even if we don't feel like it. If you do these three things, not only do I believe, but I've seen it happen over and over again. If you do these three things, you will break the cycle of the over, under, over, under, over, under. And by doing that, you will then start to have the balance in your life. And once you have balance in your life, how much better will it be? How much stress will be relieved? How many more goals will be accomplished? How much more purposeful will you feel? That's the gift of health. The gift of health isn't some dude or woman half naked on a beach holding up their body like, I'm amazing, look at my abs. No, the gift of health is to wake up without the pounding headache and to go to bed without that pounding headache. It's to not have the stress of feeling like if we're a failure or not. It's to have the peace of knowing that we're living our life for the Creator while reaping the benefits of the kingdom here on earth. And yes, you'll lose some weight in the process, and that will be awesome too. But if you do these three things, not only will you have balance, but you'll also have progress, which I think is what we all really, really want. I think what we all want here is to be in 2021 saying, look how far I've come. And it happens step by step, brick by brick, telling yourself, I'm going to do this even though I don't feel like it because I made the schedule when I felt like it. You do those three things, You will have balance, you will have peace, and you will be unstoppable. And I pray that for you. So I'm about to. Here we go.